Abid, I'm going to begin with you. I'm just wondering to begin with, really, I know it's a sort of it's a question that many filmmakers get asked, but it's like, where did this story come from? But I just wondered more, the genesis of this kind of, the idea for this particular narrative.
I mean, I think it's probably from my early 20s when I was backpacking around Europe mostly. I kind of spent, I think, good 5-6 years kind of being quite nomadic in a sense. I was in Alabama for 6 months in the Far East around Europe, and I was doing a lot of it by myself, and I ended up in Granada, and it's a city that I kept on coming back to, and I ended up kind of staying there and studying Spanish for a month. So it was really just based on that kind of experience.
Yeah, because I found it almost quite. I mean, I'm 32, so I've still got a bit of life in me yet. But I found it quite nostalgic because it reminded me of like when I was after uni and stuff. I went around Malaysia and places and had these incredible experiences. And it almost made me feel quite sad, the movie, because it reminded me of such a wonderful time. Was it like the case for you directing it and making it? Was it? Did it?
Yeah. I think because it was such a long process. I started writing it kind of in my 20s in a way. A good few years after I lived there. And I was still really fresh, and I was kind of trying to capture the moment and the feel, but because it took many, many years to kind of write and go into production and then eventually shoot, I became a lot older, and I was looking at it through a very nostalgic lens in a way. So I was kind of almost paying homage to that past experience. And I think that's kind of reflected in the story as well. When you watch the film after the halfway point, it starts to kind of, it starts to become a little bit more nostalgic. And I mean, also, we wanted to relate to people and make them think about that first time they went abroad and the craziness that happened.
Yeah. Antonio, what was it that initially attracted you to getting involved into this character?
I had an initial call with Abid, and I think it was just his energy and the way that he wanted to tell a story that was very personal to him, and he knew Granada so well, and he kept telling me, "You're going to love Granada, you're going to love it." And I was like, all right, then let's do this together. But the script itself was very strong. For me, it has a very spiritual heart, because essentially the story, Ben's story is very much about letting go and about acceptance, and it's a coming of age tale, and it has all those themes in about identity, and there was just so much to play with. So I would have been stupid not to take it.
Yeah, and Abid, tell me about finding your Ben. You must have been, not to make you blush, Antonio, but you must have been thrilled when Antonio was when you sort of came across him and he said yes to joining this project. Yeah.
I mean, we looked a lot. It was difficult because it's we're looking for some kind of vulnerability as well, and likability too, because this is a guy who's coming out of a relationship, and sometimes we need the audience to be with them, and it's very difficult sometimes to find the right kind of cast member. And we watched a lot of movies, looked at a lot of people, and then I think I came across The Hungry, which Antonio was in. Watched a few other pieces of his work, and then met up with him, and then kind of realized that he was very much could handle that role and could kind of take it on that little arc from being kind of lonesome, kind of heartbroken tourist to a guy who's kind of more comfortable in himself and discovered himself.
And I mean, yeah, Antonio, I was going to say, there's a whole myriad of I mean, obviously it's very much about Ben's journey, but there's a whole collective of characters that he kind of encounters along the way. But one that really took, that I really remember from watching it was Quintessa. What's like a real enigma. I mean, it feels like a really big future ahead lies. But what was she like to work with in those scenes? And
she's absolutely, yeah, she's wonderful, and she has this ethereal quality to her that, I mean, she was so well cast when you think about it. And another interesting thing is we shot that sequence at the very beginning as well, almost like in chronological order. I'm actually not sure if that was a choice that you made on purpose, Abid, but it really helped because I was in this new foreign country alone. And then the first cast member I meet is this girl who's a very, very much like a global nomad. And she is from America. So she has this like completely like different view of the world to me coming from Europe. And so everything that happened in the moments of performing really kind of, I suppose you could say they like reflected the character's journey in like some weird symbiotic way. And so we had a great time, but yeah, there were so many like synchronicities on this job with my character's journey and what was happening in our real lives. And even during the production, that it made this whole thing feel like, I don't know, almost like fated in a way.
Was it, Abid, how was it shooting on location? I mean, this is probably now when you tell me that half of it was shot in a studio in Enfield, but I mean, because like, you know, Antonio, you were just saying about how the kind of, there's so much that informs your performances from the experiences you went through. But I guess in this instance, all being out there together on this location must have really informed the whole set and the whole atmosphere that made this movie. So they gave it that kind of special quality.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was, you know, throwing Antonio into kind of the Easter processions at the beginning. I mean, it's exactly, I mean, we did it on purpose. We did it in chronological order because we wanted him to kind of feel that kind of what's going on here. And it's kind of controlled chaos in a way. You know, there's a lot of documentary elements in this film, and then we're wrapping a narrative around it. But the location was really, I mean, I've been there so many times since that first time I lived there, you know, 15, maybe 20 times. And I knew that city like the back of my hand in a way, so it made life a lot easier. But it was really interesting to see, you know, the characters coming, the actors coming and slowly growing and putting Antonio in an apartment with other actors to kind of facilitate that kind of study abroad kind of feeling. And yeah, it built and built and built. And the funny thing is, like, you know, Antonio's never been to Granada, and he arrived, he didn't know anyone, and then at the end of it he felt like he made friends there. You know, he felt like his character, a sense of belonging in a sense.
Yeah.
So
there's a real immersive quality about being in a foreign land and creating some kind of artistic work there, because especially with this as well, Granada has, I'm sure you can see it on the film, but it has this really specific quality and energy that can only be captured, I suppose, through the you know, the lens that you used, Abid, because there was that documentary feel. But for some of those moments, like, you know, the Easter procession section, I wasn't even fully prepped on what we were doing. He kind of just wanted me to be in that space and live in that space, and the camera followed me. And I found that that kind of immersion really helped my understanding of being a foreigner in a place and discovering things for the first time as well. This is a film about self-discovery nonetheless. So
yeah, Antonio, did you get the much chance to be a kind of tourist and have a few days off either side of the shoot, perhaps? I mean, Granada have got quite a good football team these days. Did you get to see them play?
I didn't, I'm afraid. We did travel a lot with the production, so we did have the odd night here or there. So I couldn't say that I got to experience it like as a proper tourist. And also when you're going somewhere, you know, with the idea of working there, everything that you're looking at, everything you're experiencing is, I'm literally taking it for the work. So it's a different headspace to be in as an actor versus, you know, a tourist.
And obviously, I mean, the film does feel so authentic, and there's such a realism to this. But I was going to ask Antonio, because there's a couple of scenes in particular where it just looked so spontaneous, and this is a testament to your acting, that it kind of felt so natural. But was there room for improvisation, or was it all quite regimented and stick to the script? Because there were some scenes where you couldn't see the scripts. I know it sounds like an obvious thing to say, but actually in a lot of movies you can.
Yeah, they seem really over rehearsed. Yeah, actually this is a testament to Abid, because we would do many scenes, and sometimes he'd switch it up and he'd say, how about at the end of, for example, when my character asks my ex-girlfriend's friend for her number, that was on the day. That was, I think, maybe one of the last takes. And he said, actually, before she leaves, ask her for Helen's number. And I was cringing in character because I was like, are you serious? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, and it was just, and it, you know, that, because actually doing that in real life is just so embarrassing, and like, but it works so well for the character. So some of those moments you're talking about are really down to Abid suggesting something in the moment.
And Abid, I mean, the film looked beautiful. I'm not really a technological person. I don't really understand ratios and things like that. But I think the film looked just incredible on the screen. And I was looked at on IMDb. It says it's a unique aspect ratio that's never been done before. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it was part of the story, really. I mean, I went with my DOP and we did a location recce. And the city lent itself. It's a very vertical city, like narrow alleyways in a way. So it lent itself to kind of a shorter aspect ratio. But I didn't really want to stay in that aspect ratio, because as the character kind of discovers his, you know, the place, his friends, and ultimately himself, it should widen in a sense. But we also didn't want to widen the aspect ratio so quickly. Like, I mean, a few films have done that. So the idea was, let's just do it subtly. Let's keep people in the story and just do it on the cut and start small and kind of go wide. And it just kind of complemented his journey. It complemented the city itself. The locations we were shooting towards the end are just a lot more grander than they are at the beginning, because he's just working his way into that place.
And it's so seamless as well. So many people have watched the film and had no idea about the ratio change.
Yeah, but I was going to say, you must be thrilled you've been able to hold out for theatrical then for this, because it does feel like a film that really deserves a big screen experience. But I guess over the last year, there's been such an inclination to try and push as much out as possible, but you've managed to kind of hold firm. Did you have to fight for that? And how pleased are you that you have been able to keep the kind of theatrical release in a couple of weeks?
Definitely. We have to fight for that. But I guess, I mean, the whole journey's been a fight in a way, it's like COVID and lockdown is just something else, and it's just waiting for the right moment. And you're right, it does deserve a big screen. There's the richness, the colors, the locations, the characters, the cast. It just screams to be on the big screen.
Are you guys going to be able to have like a kind of a socially distanced cast and crew screening or something? Because I know obviously a lot of films that have come out over the last few months have had to just miss all that altogether, but are you guys able to get together and see it maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think me and Antonio were doing something at the Genesis on the 28th, which is kind of the premiere. And then we've got a few more Q&A sessions. The only kind of like negative you could say is that a lot of our cast is international. They can't fly in because of quarantine. But, at least we're getting into the cinemas. At least we can like sit in with an audience and watch the film, because I think that was the other reason we were holding off, because I really wanted to be in a room with other people, just to hear them and hear their reactions and see their smiles.
Yeah, Antonio, I was wondering if this film's taken on a kind of special resonance for you over the last year, because when I was watching this film back, it did ignite these kind of feelings, because I guess maybe we've all been at home this past year and we've not really, and I guess also over the last, you've had this chance to really think about and value what's important in life. So there's been this kind of introspective kind of stuff happening over the last 12 months. So when you watch the film back now, you look back over your experiences now, do you look at it differently and through a different lens to how you experienced it at the time?
Do you mean due to COVID or?
Just due to the last year, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's really actually quite interesting, because I always find as an actor, the work that I'm doing has some real impact on where I'm at in my life. We're all on a journey, but so in terms of this story, yeah, it's definitely the kind of work that I want to gravitate towards. There's a real spiritual heart to the film, as I said earlier, that just really connects with me. And it's a story that's multi-layered. There's just so much to take away from it. So I do find that, if I'm looking at projects, I'm always comparing them to something like this when I'm deciding whether I'm, interested or not. So yes, everything that you do has an impact, but it's a constantly ever evolving journey that you're on. So, I mean, ask me again in 10 months and I'll probably have a completely different answer.
As my final question, I was going to ask, because I'm a big fan, I've always loved kind of British Asian productions, and I thought Eaten by Lions was great, and obviously East is East is a classic, and more recently Mogul Mowgli was a brilliant piece of cinema. But in all of those films, kind of culture and community plays a really big part and really informs and kind of enriches the narrative. But sometimes it's quite nice when it's kind of irrelevant to the story. And in this, Ben, his background obviously makes him who he is as a person, but it's not a plot device. Is that true progression in some ways? There's so much talk of like we must have dialogue about diversity, which is true, but in some ways not talking about it isn't even kind of moving forwards, isn't it? I mean,
exactly.
There's the man who's just brought it up in conversation, but
No, exactly. And I think unfortunately, I think we're probably one of the first few films to do this, because it is progressing. British Asians are getting those roles and behind the camera, in front of the camera, and it's not defined by the color of their skin. But I think also importantly in this story, it doesn't really matter where people are from. I mean, you don't hear them really, many of them saying, I'm from this country, I'm from this country. Yet, the idea that we're all foreigners, we're all here together. I mean, that's the identity, that's the family, and that's what I kind of wanted to focus on. But even when we're casting Ben, I mean, we weren't looking for a British Asian cast lead. We were casting colorblind in a way. But I hope it progresses. I hope we're not the only film, but I struggle to think of any other film that's kind of done that.
I mean, it's a sort of sad sort of state of the indictment of the film industry in some ways, but it did feel refreshing watching in this, which it shouldn't do, but it did all the same. But anyway, look, I thought it was a really great piece of cinema, and I'll tell you one thing: you might do wonders for the Granada tourism boards, because I'm I'm desperate to go over there now and have a little holiday. But thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the release and all the cinema showings and the Genesis and stuff. I hope it's well received, this movie, because it's a good one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey!